Hi everyone, welcome back. Let's dive right in. So in the previous episode, we have laid grounds for our customers page, and we have created this auto layout with the customer section, customer info, and nested component, customer company logo, and also the quote section on the right side. Today we're going to continue, hopefully finish this page, and yeah, let me just take this, what I have created so far, and move that over here to start actually preparing the width, the optimal width for this, which is going to be 6 columns. So I'm going to just extend this all the way to 564 according to this layout grid that we have here. Then I'm going to move back. I'm just going to adjust this auto layout to really take advantage of all of the real estate in this object that we have created right here. So the first thing I'm going to do, as you can see, if I resize this is fill container, right? So that means when you resize this, both of these are going to change. So the personal details, auto layout, and this text. But when we go all the way back to the value that we're going to be working with, 564, you can see that there's a lot of empty space that maybe it's not going to be used up all the time. So why don't we just set this to fixed and basically just make this a bit smaller, like 220, because after all, we're going to need more space here for the right hand section than for this one. Okay, so and then I'm going to take this text object and press Command Option L to align this to the left, and right away you can see that we are taking more advantage of the space as compared to the previous version, where basically, you know, there's just, I feel like, too much space in here. So I'm gonna just remove this. And then of course we need, as discussed in the previous episode, we need the case study link. So we need a link to a specific case study, and I'm gonna create a component for that as well, because again, it's gonna be something that's gonna be repeated across our design. So it's always good to create components when you're creating stuff that's going to be reused, right? So let me use my text tool, right? Text T. I'm going to click on my canvas and start typing like how company A achieved great result with our app, for example. Right? Just some placeholder text, and I am going to change this text style to paragraph body text, bold actually. Okay, so we have this object right here, this text object that we're gonna now turn into the component that I have just mentioned. So with this selected, let me press Shift A and add a fill to this auto layout. Then I'm gonna select the blue color from our library. By the way, that's the only color in our library so far. We're gonna fix that later, but just for now, let me go to fill and select the blue, right? Because we are, you know, creating stuff for case studies, and in case studies, we are utilizing quite a lot of this blue color in the headline and this graphic over here, including the hover state of these individual case studies. So that's why I chose blue, our blue color for this purpose. Also, I'm gonna change the color of the text to white, and then I think I'm gonna adjust the paddings within this auto layout. So I'm gonna go for like 12 and 10. We might adjust later, but I'm gonna make this rounded so that it invites clicking more. I am going to rename this to case study or success story link. And what I'm gonna do now is I'm basically gonna shorten this, right? I'm gonna shorten this because it's not gonna be used up all the way, right? Like this. We're gonna be using, let's say, 260, 270 points at most. So what this means is, of course, that we cannot use the entire length of the headline, right? Of the case study headline. So what this means, I'm gonna shorten this. But then to make sure that this doesn't look, you know, weird, we're gonna do two things. I'm gonna create a rectangle tool, right? Rectangle tool that I'm gonna also make that one blue. We want to do a fade out effect on this headline to make it look more natural, or more like as if it's continuing forward, which it is. We're just going to be using a part of this headline. So a similar situation is, if you remember from the previous episodes, we are using that here. So on the quotes section of the homepage, we're using this fade out effect as well. So we're going to do something similar here, however, in a smaller scale and a different color. So to start, we're going to have to detach this style from this rectangle, or just use this blue color, right? Click this color and then select linear from the drop down. This creates a linear gradient, which is exactly what we need, so that's great. And I'm going to adjust the position of these nodes so that the gradient goes from fully transparent to right fully opaque. You probably realize why I'm doing that. We need to cover this text, create a situation where this side of the text is no longer visible. So we're just going to overlay this on top of the text. But at the same time, this is an auto layout. So how can we deal with that? If I cut and paste this element inside of this object, you can see how it extends this whole object, this whole auto layout along with it. So we need to set this to absolute position. This means that this object is now no longer affecting the size of the parent element, which is exactly what we need. So let me just press Option V and then Option D to align that to the right and center that vertically. So now we are approaching the final desired effect. Let me just adjust the size of this rectangle to whichever size the object has. So now you can see how this starts coming together. This looks convincing. I'm gonna also decrease the size to about, I don't know, like 60 points. And then just to make sure that this is fully hidden, let me just add a node in this gradient. So I'm gonna click here, or more like again, right? We need to create an additional node that's going to go all the way to 100. And so now we can affect where actually the gradient is fully transparent, right? Or actually, sorry about that, we could just simply move this one, right? Either way works. So, but we do need to adjust the position of the gradient so that we get this result. So that's key. And yeah, I like this. We are going to do one more thing, and that's click on clip content on this success story link so that it crops the rectangle. I'm gonna call the rectangle fade out, just so we know what's in there basically. But yeah, essentially this is what's gonna happen. We're gonna get an object that will adjust the size according to how long the headline is actually gonna be. But at the same time, there's gonna be a fade out to make this look more natural and convey that there's actually something more to be seen. Additionally though, what we want to do is add an arrow. I think that would look good. I think that would invite clicking. So let me just press Shift L and then click once, which will create an arrow that I'm going to change the size of to 2 points wide, and also overall width is going to be less. Then also we're going to go for a white stroke. So that's this is the final result. What we're going to do, we're also going to paste this inside of this auto layout. And this is also going to be absolute position, right? So let me select this, Command X, select the success story link, Command V, and then you can see that we have managed to place that inside of the auto layout. But again, absolute position, let me change that to absolute position. And then let me go to constraints and set those to right and center. Okay, I'm gonna also press Option V, which is gonna center this vertically, and then I'm gonna move this all the way so that it's visible, so that this whole thing is visible. Right, we also have to do one thing, and that's increasing the padding on the right side so that we get some more space for the arrow as needed. I'm gonna change the size of the arrow at the same time so that basically this is what we get. Right? This is what we get. But at the same time, again, we need to adjust the position and size of this fade out rectangle. And we are now going to try and find a nice balance between these two. So how big should the right side margin padding be? I think this is too much. So let me decrease this. At the same time, I think we're going to have to again adjust the rectangle. So I'm going to do that like this, for example, and maybe even decrease the size of this arrow again. I don't know, maybe like this. And yeah, so let me just show you what we created. We basically created an object that is responsive, that responds to the text, to the headline, but at the same time you get an arrow that is in the same place all the time and the fade out that is doing the same. So now we can, whatever we type in, this is going to be adjusted like this. So this is, I think, a nice effect. This shows two things in my view. I think this shows that one, there is something more to be read, and two, you can click on this and go somewhere, right? That's what the arrow is conveying. So yeah, let me just change this to a component right here. And let me connect this text object by selecting the text object directly. Go to content, create a new component property, and I'm going to name this success story name, short in parentheses, because this is going to be a short version. And we're going to type in, let's say, how company A achieved great. And now we can cut it off right here and create the property, which is going to create this situation right here. So I think this is nice, right? I think it's very clear what's happening. I'm going to use an instance of this. So assets, and then go to wherever the success story link is and drop it here. And then I'm going to just drop it again inside of this auto layout. Now this happens. So why did this happen? That's because the quote is a fixed width. This is fill container, so this is gonna adjust to, you know, whatever space is left, and this is fixed. So this is fixed, this is hug. So that means this is a fixed width, this is a fixed width, and this isn't, and that's why we get this behavior. So to fix this, we could do like select this button and the text, Shift A, and then change the direction of the auto layout. But as you can see, this is not really what we intended, right? And we're gonna select the text and set that to fill container, right? And now you can see that this is in fact what we needed. I am going to, again, select the frame 22 and rename that to quote and link, right? Because this is a quote and a link. I'm gonna set this to fill container alongside with these things contained within the auto layout. Fill container on both of these. I'm gonna then select the success story link and move that below the quote using command and right bracket. And this is kind of the situation that we have. I think this is great. I think this is really nice. I just noticed one thing that I think we're gonna have to adjust. So I would say that in case of this being shorter than this section, I would just go to fill container on the vertical alignment, vertical resizing, and then set the spacing to auto, right? So that we always get this link in the same position, right? We're gonna be adding one more thing right here, so this is probably gonna change, but this is what I intend to do with this object, basically. I think we could even shrink this section even more to like 200. So this is kind of what we get. We get a name section, logo, success story link, and the quote. Right? And one thing I believe that could be here is a small headline. So let me just select this text object, Command C, select this quote and link section and press Command V. And then I'm going to change this, move this towards the top, change this to tagline. I would change this to tagline, press enter and type in related success story so that this is absolutely clear and easy to navigate. But here comes the moment where I actually set this back to hug contents and maintain some specific spacing like 24 so that this is always at the bottom right of this section. This headline right here is gonna basically show us or divide the space, create a subsection for this call to action. I'm gonna also add a line, so I'm gonna press P, click once, hold shift and click for the second time, enter, Command X, select this auto layout, Command V, and then move that right below this headline, this tagline. I'm then going to, by the way, if I'm going too fast, just feel free to rewind back and watch that again. But I'm just basically trying to describe the steps that I'm doing as I go through them. And if there's something not understandable, please leave a comment with a timestamp. So I'm going to select the tagline and this line, Shift A, and then horizontal layout, right? So basically we get this. But again, this is something that we definitely do not want. So let me select the frame 22, rename that to subheadline and divider, and then set this width to fill container. But at the same time, we're gonna have to press enter and set both of these to fill container as well, right? This is a frequent mistake that I used to struggle with to adjust the sizes of various elements within auto layouts. And I'm gonna just select this whole auto layout, subheadline and divider, and change the alignment to left center. But at the same time, looking at it right now, I think we need to set the related success story to hug, so that this is one single line and this line is going to adjust its size. This is great. So let me change the spacing to 16, probably change the color to blue, right? I think this could look nice. Maybe remove this and maybe also select both of these, subheadline and divider and success story link. Auto layout again, Command R, rename this to success story link section, right? We are absolutely naming and describing everything. And then I'm gonna set that to fill container. So right now what should happen is this, right? But the subheadline and divider needs to be set to fill container as well. So now this should happen. Right? Nice. So you can see how this section is adjusting. I'm going to also set the success story link to fill container as well. Actually, this is not that necessary, but I think it's good for the sake of scalability. I think it's good to use, build components and UI elements that are flexible and that are scalable. And this means that sometimes it's more work to set up all these auto layouts, but then you get an object that behaves exactly as you need. So in the case of reusing this somewhere else for a different component, maybe you are saving yourself some time. And also the reason why I created this auto layout success story link section is that I could set a separate spacing to only these two elements. So I'm going to set that to 16. And I think we could also play around with the transparency maybe. Yep, I think this is nice. Maybe change the selection color to, let's leave that at blue, but let's just try and make this color more, darker. So let's go like this. Yep. I think that works. So let me just add a shadow to this component so that we can just, make this more, invite people to click even more. Let me add some blur, negative spread, increase the blur, and of course sample the color from there. So let me just also set the transparency. I think this is going to work. Let me just adjust these values. This is very subjective, so set these values however you think it looks best. But in my view, it's good to make this subtle yet visible, maybe a bit darker than the actual color, like this maybe, and also maybe add a stroke. Let's try that. Stroke that's going to be white but partially transparent, or black and partially transparent. Maybe a gradient, linear, going from white to black, right? So I added a very subtle effect that is almost not noticeable, but just highlights the button more. I think that's a nice touch. We can always remove that later. Let me also change the spacing in this auto layout to 12. And maybe let's just write, keep this simple. Let's just write related instead of related case study. So we get a related link. I think this is nice. And then we are ready to turn this into a component. So let me just select this whole auto layout component. And now let's start setting up all these component properties. First of all, select this whole thing, go to properties, click the plus and expose properties from nested instances. We want to go for customer company logo, success story link, and customer photo. So now when we use an instance of this, we can change the person, right? Very easily. We can change the person like this. We can also change this, right? We can change this, and we can also change the company logo right here. So company A, company B. So this is great. Now, one more thing. Let me also select the name and go to content, click on this, create new component property, person name, then select position, again, content, create property, person position, and also select this quote, content, create property, and then quote. So now we are able to take an instance of this component and edit absolutely everything. So we can edit the quote, right? We can edit the quote. We can change the position, right? We can change the name, as you can see. We can change the company logo. For now, we just have, let me show you, we just have two versions, right? Two companies, but that's gonna probably change soon as well. We can also change this and the customer. So this is a completely flexible component. You can do whatever you need with this. You can just, in this case, I'm just gonna reset all changes, revert back to this version. And now I'm going to place this onto our page. So let me just move this wireframe over here, move this over here, and then place this right here. Beautiful. Select this whole page, Shift G, and then also place all of these next to each other and duplicate them to get like, I don't know how many, 4 for now. And so here's a problem, right? You cannot easily differentiate individual sections, right? This all kind of blends in with the background, and I think we should be taking more advantage of that differentiation. So let's just think about what we did previously to do this. As you can see, we used subtle borders, and I think I'm just going to use that as well, right? Makes the most sense. We just want to maintain consistency and keep using this. Let me select this component, go to stroke, select the stroke, Command C, and then let me just select this component and Command V, right? Simple enough. We are using a completely identical stroke and we managed to differentiate this. So the only problem right now that I have is that I don't think this looks very good. I think there's just too many lines. So why don't we try and hide this line? Maybe that will help. Does that help? Actually, I think it does. But why don't we go even simpler and just remove all of this altogether, this subheadline and divider section. So remove this, right? Yeah, I think this makes sense, honestly, because this is simple yet understandable enough. You know that, you realize what this is. And I believe that we should now set this section to fill container and then set again the spacing to auto. So as you can see, when designing stuff, it's very frequent that you just go back and forth, you make assumptions, you then change them and you change them back. So it's just back and forth with finding the right solution, but that's just the way it is, and it's great to go through these iterations to really discover what is truly the best solution for whatever you're designing, right? Another option could be, let me just use this, another option could be like having a dark background also that would be the similar color as to whatever we have here. So basically we would get this, right? We get this gray color with white customer background. So yeah, I think when I turn off the stroke now, yeah, I think this is better. Yeah, so it's also we also get consistency. So again, I went back and forth, right? So at first I used strokes, now I'm using the solid background, but with a different background color. But in general, if you get like customers over here that are white background on a gray background, then doing the same combination again also makes sense. So why don't we use this, right? Why don't we actually do that? And so here's the thing, we will be using a very similar layout to this. So we also will get customers, an icon and a subheadline, content, call to action, and the footer. So why don't I simply select this page content, Command C, select the customers page, and then press Command V. So I'm gonna hide this for now and just remove this footer, remove the footer, and then I'm gonna reappear this section again. I'm gonna move that into the background, so Command Option left bracket, and then I am going to select these 4 customers, Command X, remove this background, and then under the frame 21, I'm just gonna press Enter, remove all of these, and then with this still selected again, Command V. So what I did is I placed these customers within the frame that we basically used on integrations. So it's basically a completely identical layout except for we switch the content, right? This means I'm gonna remove this customers headline and just rewrite this to customers. Of course, this is going to mean changing colors. So let me just change the color of this page content auto layout to gray so that we get this, right? I think that works. And yeah, I think we can continue. So we basically just reused whatever we had here once more and just change the content, right? So why not do that if there's already stuff in place and you want to maintain consistency as much as you can? So I think that's a good idea actually. So here's the thing. We also have this smaller icon right here that we used for integrations, but we need one for customers, right? So why don't we just add a new variant of this, add another variant that's going to be called customers. So this is default that we're going to rename to integrations, but this is going to be customers. And I'm going to do a very simple logo icon for customers. I'm going to keep the middle ellipse, turn off the rotation, remove the rest, right? So I just get this basically. Make this larger, like 18 points. And then I'm just going to create a rectangle that's going to be right below that and center that as well and extend that and then just round it like this. Right, so very easy. We got a person, silhouette, a profile picture type of thing. So a very simple icon for customers representing a person. So yeah, let me just go over here and change this logo to customers from integrations, right? And we got ourselves a customer icon. We go to the prototype, and if we reset this, we don't actually have to reset that. Go to customers, we get this beautiful page with the content, subheadline, the individual customers, and then the call to action. So let me just switch stuff around a little bit. So let me just change the photo of the person, number 2, number 3, number 4. And then let's also switch up the company. So these two are going to be company B, and also adjust the size of frame 21. So let me change the size to so that it ends precisely at the bottom end of these two bottom customers. Let me also sort out the distance, the vertical distance. If we use our arrows and just place that, it touches precisely, and then let's just add 24. Let's just add 24 pixels. So we are using spacing in increments of 8 pixel grid, spacing system, I guess. Now this is a lot of visually powerful information at the same time. I believe that we could make this more interactive by creating an additional variant for the quote component that is going to be hover, right? So this is going to be default. The second one is going to be hover. I am then going to change the property name of property 1 to state, and we're going to do one thing. We're going to at the same time change, create a variant for the button that's going to be hover and default. So we're going to have default and hover on both of these, right? And I am going to also change property name to state so we maintain consistency, and I am going to change this appearance of the first state. I'm gonna turn off the shadow, turn off the stroke, and set the background to like this mid gray, right? This mid gray. It could be even lighter, like this, for example. And then I'm also gonna select this rectangle and change the linear gradient that we have right here to whichever value we just set up. So that's E6, 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 and I'm gonna reuse that right here. So E6 and E6. And I am going to also go to selection colors with this selected and change the white to black. And let's see what this looks like. Now I think black is too prominent, so why don't we do like gray? So what we want to essentially do here is create a situation where if you hover over these people, this button gets highlighted to this state. So let me just find out what's the correct balance of colors. So what about using a stroke? What about using a stroke actually instead of the fill? Yeah, I think we could do that. I think we could do that actually. So let me set the linear back to using white, and yeah, we get this. Yeah, I think this really works. So now that we have two states, I'm gonna select the second variant of this quote component and set this component to hover. So this is going to be hover, right? And then select the first state, prototype, connect the first state to the second one, and then do while hovering, change to state hover. And this is going to be dissolve. So let's just test what this looks like in prototype mode. Reset, customers, and now when I hover over these individual customers, you can see how this button highlights, inviting you to click on it and to take you to a success story connected to this specific customer. Great. One small adjustment. Let's select this success story link section and add a padding from below of like 4. So this is going to create a subtle movement where we also need to set this to smart animate. So let's just go to prototype, smart animate, and this is going to be quick, right? So it's going to be like 230 milliseconds. And then when I go back to the prototype, you can see how it reacts on hovering, not only by changing color, but also by changing its position very, very slightly, which is, I think, really, delightful and just makes it a whole lot more interactive. And yeah, I think we are getting pretty close. I think we have created this hover state with this interaction. Let me just change this headline over here so that we could make this say like, read what our customers have to say about using our product, right? Something very generic again. And yeah, so the next step would be actually creating some convincing looking icons or logos for these companies so that this actually looks more legit. But otherwise, I think it's pretty clear what this page is about, what purpose this serves, also what you can do with it. And also a very important part of this is the call to action and then the footer, along with all this functional navigation. And by the way, if you want to find out how we created all these other pages with all these interactions and objects, go and watch the playlist, the series linked below in the video description and find out. So yeah, this is the final result for today. Thanks for tuning in and I will see you in the next one.